Hi all, it's Janet from Janet's Kitchen Garden, and this is New Year's Eve on a foggy morning in Dallas, Texas. And today we're going to talk about bare root fruit trees and look around the garden a little bit. So thanks for tuning in and let's talk. Okay, we're here with my bare root trees. I've got them soaking in a couple of buckets of water, and to the water I added a tablespoon of Garrett juice. This is a great all-purpose fertilizer developed by Howard Garrett, and it contains fish emulsion. You'll smell immediately. Seaweed. It's a 1.5 to 2.2.1.5. So it's a really good fertilizer all around for root stimulation, for existing plants, indoors and outdoors. Indoor use, it's smelly, but it's really good stuff. So right here we have 3 gala apples, and these are dwarf galas. And what I'm doing is soaking my roots. Whenever you buy a bare root tree, bare roots, you want to soak them as soon as you get them from the nursery. Because at the nursery, when you buy bare roots, they have dug them up and then they do what is called heel them in, which is they dig a trench, lay the plant in, and then they just cover it with some dirt until they're sold. And if they don't sell, they get potted up. But anyway, so this is your bare root. Before I plant, and I'll show you this in a little bit, I'll trim off a little bit of this root because they always lose root when they're dug up. Now, this part down here is the graft rootstock. This is the dwarf rootstock that the scion wood, which is up here, has been grafted onto. Now, this rootstock, this dwarf rootstock, is what dictates the height of this plant. And so what's very, very important when you do put your plant in the ground is that you want to plant it as deep as it was at the nursery. And it looks like they had it healed up to about here. I'm going to plant it a little bit lower than that, I think. I think they had it healed in a bit too deep. You'll see on a couple of the others here, again, you have your dwarf rootstock. This is your scion wood, and they had it planted about here. You don't want to completely bury your rootstock. You don't want that rootstock sending up suckers. That's really important. If you do get suckers coming up from your rootstock, cut them off immediately. Okay, so anyway, so I will trim the roots a bit when I go to put it in the ground. Also, I will prune it, and I will show you how I prune this right before I plant it or right after I plant it when we get over to the pre-dug holes. I think what's important is when you're buying trees, the first thing you need to do is decide where they're going to go in your garden. And where they go in the garden depends on how much sunlight this tree needs to properly fruit. They need about 8 to 10 hours of sunlight, direct sunlight a day. I would not plant them any closer than 8 to 10 feet, maybe even more, depending on how much land you have. Here in the city, I'm going to prune these and keep them smaller because I don't have that big a yard, I don't have that much room. So I'll show you that again when we dig the hole. So decide where you're going to put your trees, pre-dig your hole, and measure it with you can just measure it with your spade against where you're going to plant your tree and dig it accordingly. Don't add anything to your soil. That tree needs to acclimate to its surrounding soil. If you put a bunch of additives like compost, manure, potting soil, whatever, into that hole, it's going to love where it is, and it's not going to encourage those roots to spread out into the surrounding ground. And that is key for establishing that tree in that first 2 years really. The other thing is when you dig your hole, If the sides of your hole look really shiny and smooth, it means when you've been shoving that spade in there, you've pretty much sealed up those sides. So take your fork and kind of break up the sides a bit around your hole. That will help those roots get out. Okay, so let's go talk about the hole and pruning. Okay, so here we are out in the front yard, and by the hole I've pre-dug for my dwarf gala, and we're going to take it out of its water, and now I'm going to prune a little bit on the roots. So you don't need to take a lot. What you want to take is just the scraggly. If you've got one that's broken, you just want to prune it a little bit. And the reason we're pruning it a little bit is that when they're dug to create the bare root for sale, invariably some roots are lost. And so this just kind of helps keep the tree active and vigorous. This looks pretty good. There's not too much. So I'm going to set my pruners down here back in my pocket. So again, what we have here, so set them down. What we have, as you can see here again, is your graft. And this, as I said, is your dwarf stock that your scion wood has been grafted onto. And again, this is what dictates the size of your tree. So I have dug my hole and I've roughed up the sides. Now the other thing that you want to make sure your tree is growing in the direction you want. We'll prune this once it's in. And the other thing that's important is don't have the soil super loose at the bottom. You want it a little bit like a stable base is what you're creating, because here at the bottom you can see you've got this is not soft, this is hard, and it's kind of something like a fulcrum. Okay, so you can put the tree in onto that, and I like the way this is setting. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start putting my dirt around the roots, and as I put my dirt in around the roots, I'm just going to use my fingers splayed apart and just kind of pack the dirt in a little bit. What you want to do is to be able to get that dirt in and around the roots and take up any of that airspace. You don't want airspace. Break up the big clods. Old azalea roots. So again, we're going to go up to where this tree was planted before at the nursery, before it was dug up, without burying that rootstock. And then what I'm going to do with my excess dirt, so I'm just going to kind of build it up around here. A little dam, help the water, because we're on a little incline here, or decline. We're a little lower than our neighbor's yard. So I'm just going to build this up so it'll hold water. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tamp this down with my feet, just a little bit, because you want it to be able to kind of grip your tree. Okay, that's good. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to prune this a bit. Now, in pruning, the first thing you want to make sure you do is remove any broken bits, like if you look in transit from the nursery, this little fella got broken. So, but it's really a good looking branch. I really like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prune this back to an outward facing bud. You'll see my outward facing bud, and so it will shoot out this way. So you want to take back to about 1/3 of the existing branch. So again, right here, we're going to cut this back to an outward facing bud. And this one, find our outward facing bud here. That cut. And now this one is pretty straight up here. I think what we are going to do on this is we're going to take out this tall leader right here. Okay? And then cut back. See, we've even started getting some new growth here. But we're going to cut this back because what we're trying to do here is stimulate root growth. We really want those roots to grow. Remember that when you plant a tree, the first couple of years, pick off your blooms. Don't let your tree set fruit, because what you want to do is have that tree put all its energy into root system. You'll have a better tree by the 3rd year, especially on peaches and dwarfs. You'll probably be getting fruit by the 3rd year. By the 5th year, 6th year, you should be in full production. So I'm going to prune a couple of more little branches here. Then I'm going to take my bucket of water that it was soaking in, the bare roots were soaking in, and water it in with that. Thanks for watching. Happy gardening. See you later. Bye.